Why does he have to have the house paid off for his kids? He doesn't. How many times have you guys come across somebody who has kids or grandkids and they tell you their kids are going to live there? It happens. 100% happens every once in a while. But my experience, 80 to 90% of the time, when I talk to older people and they're leaving the house to kids or grandkids, they are going to sell it. All right. And I make them think that. Like, this sounds weird, but I do. And here's how I say it. So, John, here's what happens. More often than not, you're leaving the house to your kids, grandkids, whoever. A lot of times they don't want to live in their grandparents' house, right? You have $100,000 of equity in your house right now. What they need is to be able to sell the house and pull the equity out. And at that point, they can take the $200,000 of equity and they can do it for where they want to. So they're not going to live in the house. That's usually what happens. Now, does that kind of sound like what your situation look like? Yeah, probably. I led him to that conclusion. I talked him through that. If I were to ask John, hey, John, what are your kids going to do at the house? He then might start going off the wall. Well, they might live in it, whatever. So then it leads them to the conclusion where I want to have the house paid off because they might want to live in it. But that's not what happens. All right. So you have to be very leading in the way you ask that question of, John, most of my clients who are leaving the kids to their grandkids, they end up selling the house because they just have their own families, got their own thing going on, and they just need the equity out of the house. Does that sound like what you would go through in your family? Yeah, probably so. He already has bought equity protection now. Without knowing it, I have already sold him on equity protection. He's done. It's a sell. Because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to get to the numbers and I'm going to say, all right, John, so here's what makes sense for you. Again, you don't need the full house paid off. Number one, I don't want to sell you a very expensive policy that you're going to have to pick between paying this policy or eating this month. I don't want you to be there. What I also want you to do is have a policy in place that's going to help your kids out, because whatever's going to happen. All right, you pass away tomorrow, John. The bank's not going to come to your kids and say, all right, we need $145,000 to pay your house off, or you got to get out. They don't need that. What the kids are going to need is they're going to need time to be able to sell the house and get the equity out of it. Does that make sense? So what we do for you is a plan that everybody does at your age called critical period coverage, because what's going to happen for those first 3 to 9 to 12 months is there's a lot of things going on. They're going to have to go through a process to get the house, sell it, list it, all that stuff. That takes anywhere from 3 to 12 months. Okay. So what we're trying to do for your kids is not pay the house off because they're not going to live in it. It makes no sense for you to pay a large premium for something they're not going to live in. They just need time to get the equity out of the house. Does that make sense? They almost always say yes. Every once in a while, some ignorant person will say, well, I want to have the full house paid off. Okay, great. I'm going to show this to you. You can do it if you want to. They have to beg me for that. So that's my perspective of, if you're going to be in your 60s or 70s and you want full mortgage, you're going to have to ask me for it. Like, you're going to have to make me do that, because I do not want to. It is not in your best interest, or any elderly client's best interest, to buy unless they can get an IUL. That's the only exception. But even then, it's going to be very expensive. But if you're stuck selling somebody a 10, 15-year term, and they're 60, 70, and that's $300-$400 a month, you got to kind of look at it of why, right? Did you truly put that person's best position? And a lot of times, if you look at it in the entire context, the answer is no. Because yes, they're covered for the next 10 years. Then what? Maybe the house is paid off if you're lucky. Now, if they have a 10-year mortgage, then okay, cool. We'll just cover for 10 years. But most people are talking 25, 30-year mortgages. What I'm trying to get at with you guys is the equity protection is a very easy sales pitch. Okay. Most of my sales these days are exactly that, except for the ones last week that were all in their 20s. So if you get somebody in their 20s, great. You can sell a full mortgage all day, every day, great. 30, 40s, do it. But what you're going to see if you're running mortgage leads, I would say 60% of your clients, 70% of your clients are going to be at least 55 and up age range. That's where the most of them are going to be right now. Okay. So you have to be good at being able to lead them to that equity protection. Okay. You have to go into every appointment with an open mind, right? I'm not trying to sell them full mortgage. I'm just going to see. All right. And it doesn't have to be, I got to sell them full mortgage or nothing. Because if your mindset is that, then so is their mindset. And I know for a fact, there's many of you on this call who have went through and you tried to put them through a full mortgage, they get declined, and then you're trying to put them something else and you can't. Because now you got to call them, because you've already pitched them. You've already sold them a full mortgage so hard. You went hard in on a full mortgage, full mortgage, full mortgage. They get declined, and then you're calling like, well, we can do 30,000. No, I'm good. Click. All right. you're setting yourself up with no buffer, no backup. Okay. So you have to really be good at the way you word equity protection. That's exactly the way I do it.